So all we're waiting on is that go live button, and there it is. So
I
hello,
think I see
friend,
it. How's it
and
going?
welcome back. I'm Lee Brown with
Good to
One
be
Community
back.
Real Estate. You know me, and you probably talked to him or heard about him. But this is one of my most trusted lending partners, Brian Floyd with Fairway
Yeah.
Mortgage. And you can see we've worked really hard to get our avatars on level playing field because we're going to talk about the playing field not being super level right now because Brian
Ooh.
and I want to bring y'all some truth facts and we'll
Yeah.
drop some information on you about something that's actually near and dear to my heart and even nearer and dearer to Brian's heart because let's talk about VA loans and real estate. So if you're not a realtor, you're probably thinking, oh, Lord, let me get out of here. This matters because you probably know a veteran, especially if you're in North Carolina, because we're the nation's most military-friendly state. What?
That's
In
right.
fact, Brian, thank you for your service. And you should tell
Yep.
them real briefly why you love VA loans, the
Yeah.
quick snippet.
So I've had 3 myself because I'm a veteran who was stationed in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the world's most military-friendly state. So it is a near and dear topic to me. And I love that lead-in you had with leveling the playing field. That was real pro stuff there. We just didn't prepare that.
Meeting we planned. We actually hatched one where I was
Yeah.
going to say, hey, so how was your weekend, Brian? And Brian says,
Well, it was buy a house weekend, and I stayed very busy.
and then
And
I
then Lee
said,
says,
it was not buy a house weekend because one of my clients found themselves boxed out because of a VA loan.
yeah.
So I want to talk to y'all about VA loans. We're going to do some Q&A and ask Brian some questions about how do buyers make it happen in this really, really funky real estate market when they're veterans and they frankly deserve our thanks and not get boxed out because of their loan type. So if you guys have questions about veterans loans, pipe them in. I will ask them of Brian. I forgot to start my Instagram feed here.
Ooh. Hey, while you're doing that, I'm going to make a point too that you said something about, everybody's going to want to tune into this, even if you're not a real estate agent, because one day you may sell your house and you may get a VA offer. And I want you to know,
that's a great
don't
point.
be afraid. You matter more than anyone, in this case. So don't be afraid.
And when I first got in the business 21 years ago, VA loans were clunky because back then we in North Carolina in the Concord area, you had to drive to Salisbury to the VA administrator's office and get your COE, your certificate of eligibility, which was basically some grandma had her little notepad on her desk and her pencil, and she would look up your file and get it to you in 6 to 8 weeks. But that's all changed now. But unfortunately, in real estate, once we learn things, we have a hard time unlearning them. And that is persistent. And then we get into markets like we're in right now. And agents maybe don't know that VA is different than it was. And they don't know that it can be doable. And sellers don't know because they may have sold a house 15 years ago, to your point, and they don't know that it's something that's doable as well. So I'd like to start with our number one issue that we have with our veteran clients. Well, actually, before the issues, tell us, Brian, who's eligible for VA financing on residential real estate?
Yeah, and there's a lot more of them now because we've been in 20 years of wartime at this point. But any of your active duty veterans or any of your, you have a lot of National Guard or reservists that have been activated during wartime for a certain period. So large pool right now. A lot of those people, especially like you said, in North Carolina, are going to be eligible. Or if you have not been activated, but you're a National Guard or Reserve veteran and you've done enough time of 6 years of service of Guard or Reserve service, then you'll be eligible for a VA loan as well. So some folks who don't even know they're eligible are eligible, and a lot more people than you realize out there.
And you have to be honorable discharged to receive the VA loan, correct?
Yes, you can't be dishonorably discharged. There's a couple versions of honorable discharge.
When you're meeting with buyers and you're meeting with sellers, you need to ask them, hey, by the way, have you or are you currently serving the country in the form of military service? And then don't forget the National Guard does count, because that's a great point, Brian. People forget that National Guard counts. Of course, if you look at a picture of DC right now, it looks like Baghdad. They're fully aware that the National Guard is still active.
Yeah, they're activated, and that can maybe generate some service for them. or some eligibility forms. So I would say one of the things we like to ask a question, in fact, it's now on the new 1003 that will specifically ask yes or no, are you a veteran? So that we can make sure we're putting you in the right program, and then have a copy of your DD 214. Any real vet, I like to think, has a DD 214 within arm's reach. I can grab mine right now just in case they try to make me go back and I want to prove I'm out. But have a copy of your DD 214, which is your discharge, release from active duty. Even your Guard and reservists who were activated and have been released from active duty back to Guard or Reserve service will have a DD 214 for that period. That's what we're going to need, basically. A great place to start to determine your eligibility.
And isn't that a great reason to celebrate the new 8-page loan app that's not a 4-page anymore because it's asking
yes,
right? People forget to ask. That can be a good thing.
Everybody would celebrate that unless they're a loan officer and trying to figure out how to
use the tabbing in different fields.
Yeah.
I know.
The actual application is great. The computer program turning upside down and us figuring out, I knew where every nook and cranny was, and I had to start over. And I feel like I'm learning to walk again. So, but we're getting there.
You have little kids in the house. You can survive little kids. You can survive a change in the loan app.
Yeah, there'll be more changes. By the time I get used to this, they'll change it again. So.
Okay, so let's get to the meat of what's going on out there right now in every market around the country, and it's no different in Charlotte, Concord, our greater metropolitan area. Almost every house goes on the market. It gets a pile of offers, and it might be a small pile, but you might see 47 offers. So sellers are looking through. They're trying to figure out which ones represent the best opportunity, represent the least risk. Agents are trying to help guide them in that process. So VA buyers are finding themselves in that same place as FHA buyers with, oh man, y'all are government loans. We don't want y'all. So let's talk about the two biggest issues that occur with VA loans and what the VA is doing and what you see as a loan professional. By the way, if you're a realtor, this is when you should talk to a lending professional because you probably don't know everything. That's why I have great people like Brian. I got Bliss. I've got Jordan. I've got people around me that can answer questions. And so, Brian, the number one thing people are concerned about, well, when the VA loan comes through, there's going to be this crusty old VA inspector. And I already told you my favorite guy that I used to farm a crowd royal to every Christmas. He retired. It's very frustrating. But the crusty old VA inspector comes to the house and he's going to deliver the smackdown on repairs. And why would any seller put up with that in today's market? So what is the current situation with required repairs and with inspections, and how can realtors explain things to their sellers in a way that's fair and current?
Yeah, I would say probably the number one. So to break that into three parts, the number one thing I see a lot of, or the question I hear, or the comment I overhear, is the valuation. People are worried, well, the value won't get there with a VA appraisal, but it would with another. The valuation model is going to be the same. They're using comps and adjustments. I mean, the house either comps and is worth it or it isn't. So if you get a valuation from the VA or valuation from conventional or FHA, the valuation itself is going to be the same. The market is the market. The method does not affect that. So the valuation is not going to be something you need to worry about. If you have a value problem, you have a value problem regardless of your loan type. Next
for a quick second though, because many of the buyers out there are putting forth offers that have appraisal waivers where they say, I'll pay if the property doesn't appraise, I can go above loan value. Is that possible with VA loans? And what's your advice to a buyer who's competing with that?
Ooh, good one. It is possible to pay the difference. So let's say the house is $250,000 and appraises for $240,000. The buyer can bring in a $10,000 difference just like they can on any other loan. What is my advice? Varies, and it depends on the market. So there's a few schools of thought on that. Obviously, the old dad in me would say, never overpay for anything. But I also look at in Cabarrus County, what's our appreciation in real estate, for example, and the rate at which real estate is appreciating, you'll probably be caught up. Let's say you offered $40,000 over a list price. You'll be caught up to that, and maybe not 40 of them, but if you ever 10, 15,000, you'll be caught up to that in about a year and a half, probably, based on our current.
No market conditions are
Right. Yeah.
permanent or guaranteed. This is not a predictor of future value. Brian is just extrapolating. We don't know what happens to markets, but carry on.
That's a very good point. And I try to speak in general numbers for that reason, because if you just think about the concept of market appreciation, so home values are going to probably appreciate. Generally, they do, right? And the rate at which they do, and we look at historically what they've done in this particular county, but wherever you are, it's pretty easy to look up, and they're all pretty much going up right now. So, you can find overpaying is tough, but it's almost like, think about, hey, I'm paying what this house would be worth in a year, for example, all right? But I'm paying what it'll be worth in a year, but at today's rates, which are also on the way up. So, there's a little bit of analytics to apply to that question. So really, it depends on the person, depends on the buyer, and depends on your motives. But, how much do you want the house? That's kind of where you are. The good news is, with the way that homes tend to appreciate, you probably have the data to back up the fact that you're not going to put yourself in a bad position if you do that. But consult your realtor, because they can tell you more about real estate values than anybody out there, including the internet. So I would talk to your realtor about that.
That's right. The internet is not your friend unless you're watching me around Brian Floyd here talking about information that you need. So if you're enjoying what Brian's dropping, ask a question, give a like or a thumbs up, because I want to ask him a question now. So let's take that hypothetical situation. House is under contract for $250, appraises for $240. The buyer says, I'm going to call Mama and she's going to gift me the $10,000 to make up the difference. What is the VA's opinion on that gift from Mama? Is that allowed? Are there rules? Is there paperwork?
You can get gifts from immediate family and VA loans. Pretty much any loan you can get a gift, but depending on the type of loan, widens the spectrum of people you can potentially get a gift from. Paperwork to source the gift. So getting a gift, not a problem. Whenever Mama hands you the cash out of the mattress, possible problem. So you got to be able to source it. It's got to be on paper, and you got to be able to prove where it came from. So what I tell people when they're going to get a gift, talk to me first. Is it okay to line up the gift? Don't get the gift until we talk, because there's usually ways to go about doing it, depending on the loan program and the loan type and the source of the gift and how they're going to be getting it. There are steps to take that are going to make it easier. Obviously, the gifter, the receiver of the gift is in a good position, but we want to make this as easy on the person giving the gift as possible, because they're already parting with $10,000. So they're having a bad enough day. We don't want to make their day any more difficult for doing this great thing for a family member.
Probably COVID nervous. She's got to go down to the F&M or to the Uwharrie Bank, and she won't make sure she's safe to give you that $10,000.
Mama may not trust banks.
Who can blame her, frankly? Yeah. The media or the banks. All right, so back to this valuation situation. So we've addressed the gap, and we've talked about how people can get through that. So let's talk about the other side of that. VA inspection, which was where I was trying to go, but you went after the money first. I'm going after the repairs first.
It's all about the money. Yeah.
You're all about the money because you're a money man. So we're talking about the situation with repairs. You and I have both seen in the past, the VA appraiser might come out and nitpick a house. I don't like this. I don't like that. We've all seen the handrail that they won't build on 3 stairs. The seller jury rigs one out of 2x4s, which are like $6 a piece now. It's crazy.
I had one of those on my first house, like literally the 2x4 handrail.
Kind of stupid. And so sellers don't want to do it because they have this other pile of offers that don't require them to do that. So has the VA lightened the load on these required repairs? Are they being more reasonable and being more fluid with the market that we have?
I would say, again, I hate to speak for the VA. I would say they're going to set standards of safety and conduct. And they're going to adhere to them. So they're basically going to hold the homes up to code. For example, if there's a safety standard they have in place, they're going to be sticking with it with the market. The appraiser themselves, you know what I mean? They're human beings. So they may nitpick harder, they may nitpick less, but we don't know what they're going to nitpick. But again, they could nitpick it on anything. They can nitpick this on any kind of appraisal. I think the only thing I've seen that's truly nitpicky is the handrail thing and the chipping and peeling paint. Anything else I've had come up has not really been obviously as a seller, you're like, oh, it's because of the VA. It's really just I don't want to fix this broken window, I'm going to have a problem with no matter what.
Well, and sellers don't have to right now because they
Right.
have other offers that
Yeah.
are willing to accept repairs. And so the VA buyer might be willing to accept the repairs, but the VA says
Yes.
no. So have you
Yeah.
heard any rumblings or whispers about that getting better? I reached out to the
Yeah.
VA earlier today, and there's no official guidance, but there's conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I've had plenty of cases where
nowadays.
I've had a few buyers that have gone in and done the repairs themselves. I don't know if this is official record or not, but
it's all official because we're on all the networks, including Instagram here.
all they care about is when that appraiser goes back out for the final, that the work is done, and that it's done right. So however it gets there, whoever does it, whoever pays for it, however it gets done, it doesn't matter as long as it gets done. So
well, your realtor is going to say that it's very unsavory to do repairs on a house you do not own because that's your money. B, the loan may go sideways, and C, liability.
Yeah.
Fall off the porch and break your leg half in two, you won't have any coverage. And so I don't want my buyers doing those repairs.
Yeah.
The VA needs to start working with us. And so is your advice to a buyer wanting to utilize their VA loan that they focus on newer properties, vinyl siding, the ones that are less likely to have the things that are going to cause the VA appraiser heartburn?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. I think you're going to be smarter if you go after, like when people come to you for a house that was built in 2015, unless there's something bad happened to that house or it was poorly built, I'm going to be shocked if we have a lot of conditions. When you have an historic home
built in Cabarrus County and on the tax records, it said inferior quality. They're out of business now. But when the county calls you inferior quality,
that's not good. Yeah.
I'm not naming names, but my clients know.
Yeah.
It's in the tax records.
Wow. Yeah, that's not a good look for sure. No, I see problems sometimes on historic homes because they are older and they need to be updated in a lot of cases. But I don't want to say stay away from them because maybe, like I had a guy, and I won't say names, but I have a guy and I've been friends with him ever since. He bought an historic farmhouse and did all the work and has totally just renovated it. And so he was able to go in and, get it up to VA standard. I think one of the things, they had a shed and he just went over there and tore it down with permission of the seller. They worked it out and they tore it down.
So wait a minute. The VA is going to fuss about a detached shed?
They could, yeah. Ancillary structures, if they're not up to code, the same standards of the house, they could get you on that. So that's something to be aware of.
Code twice now. Does the VA use the same standard as the rest of the state, which is that you don't have to bring an old house to code, that it's got to be code for when it was built? So houses don't have to, you can't take a 1920 house and force it to be built by 2021 standards. Is the VA the same way?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, what they're looking for is basically safety.
Right.
Yeah.
Environmental things like oil tanks that are keeping in the yard, exposed asbestos, aluminum wiring.
Yep.
Hot mess, basically.
And these are all things that are coming up to be issues on all, oil tank in the yards, and it's a problem for anybody now. So
I know because North Carolina's out of money for the Superfund, which is a different conversation. But if there's a historic home that the wiring's been updated and the plumbing's been updated and the heating and air is recent-ish and the windows are recent-ish, should we be okay on VA? Yeah,
probably so. I mean, you can't say for sure until you get it back, but I would not be worried about something like that. I've done plenty of them. Downtown Concord, which is an historic area. I've done probably 3 or 4 VA loans on historic homes with the wood siding and the paint and not had an issue. So you can, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. It's like anything else, it's the state of the house. Some are in great shape.
We know you're running for office at some point. Because
I don't know about that.
So here's what I want to ask you. How does a veteran buyer financially set themselves up more successfully in a competitive market? How can you, as the professional loan money guy, help the realtor get them through the process? Do you have any tips?
In general or just VA?
VA. We are VA specific right now because these are our buyers. And the reason people go VA, as you guys know, It's a 0% down
It's a
program.
great deal. Yeah.
Don't have a lot of saved up money, it's available, and it's a wonderful program.
Even if you have money saved up. So I'm glad you asked this question. And again, this is unrehearsed. This worked out great. You brought it up. It's a good program. Like I used the VA loan, but I didn't have to use a VA loan. I could use another kind of loan. I wanted to put, and you can put money down with a VA loan. I wanted to put 0% down because there are better things I can do with that down payment than put it into a loan with incredibly low interest rates that it's fixed for 30 years. So it wasn't my only option, but it is a great option. It's a very good deal. It's not just, you zero down, you don't have any kind of mortgage insurance with it. The rates are good. So if I can make it work, it's great for me. And a lot of times our buyers are the same way. Just because they're going zero down doesn't mean they have to go zero down. It's not indicative of their ability to be a buyer of a house. You know what I'm saying? And to look at it that way is almost discriminatory. So I think it's really important that people understand that. Yeah. Speaking your language now, right?
Say that one more time, Brian Floyd.
So just because they're going zero down doesn't mean they have to go zero down. It's not indicative of their ability to purchase a home. And to look at it that way is almost discriminatory because maybe they're just being financially savvy and smart. I am a person, I believe in liquidity, and I like to keep my money and I like to control where it's earning as opposed to control what it's doing. And when I'm paying very little interest on my VA loan, I'm going to take as little money down to put on that as possible. I'm going to take that same money that I would be paying 2.75 on or 3% on or saving 2.75 or 3% on. I'd rather put it anywhere and make more money, except GameStop. I'm not going that deep with it. So
I don't know. That's the best news story of 2021, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that.
From Reddit. Okay, so
America needed that.
If I call you and I say, "Hey, Brian, I want you to call this listing agent on behalf of my buyers and defend their pre-qualification," what is the information you provide to that agent? Because agents are completely stressed out right now. They're overwhelmed by when they get a listing by the fact that the offers come pouring in. They never stop. They can barely see straight. So how are you helping that agent get over the hump themselves?
So a lot of times, one is we dig deep on every pre-approval. So it's not just, you could probably Google a pre-approval letter and get your name PDF'd in there and zip one out if you wanted to.
Please don't do that. Brian said you could. He didn't say you should.
Yeah, everybody knows. All you got to do is go to this website. But not all pre-approval letters are created equal. So we look into them very deeply, and we look at your credit, assets, income, all those things that are going to be qualifying factors. And there's no way to zip tie one 100% from the beginning because there's always surprises. There's always things that people didn't think they needed to tell you. There's things that happen during the transaction. It happens, okay? But we look at all that stuff. Yeah, that happens more than you think. We look at all that stuff up front, so we know, hey, this is a very solid deal. A lot of times when I call a list agent, first I need to make sure I talk to the buyer and the agent and say, look, how deep do you want me to go on this? Just because somebody has a lot of options doesn't mean they want to use a lot of options. Somebody might be able to put 20% down as a fallback, but if that ends up being the case, they're going to say, never mind, I'll just walk. So do I want to present that as a potential backup plan? No, not if they're going to walk anyways. So usually I get a good picture from the buyer and a good picture from their agent, how far they're willing to go in this conversation with the seller and the seller's agent. I'll call the seller's agent and say, look, first of all, if you don't know me, I'm Brian, I'm with Fairway. We dig deep on these. We're not just writing a letter to write a letter and hope it sticks. This is this loan, and we feel very, very good about this loan. Second of all, if you're concerned about the VA, first, what are your concerns? And let me see if I can answer those concerns. I'm concerned about the value. Well, if you listed the house for $250, do you not think it's worth $250? That kind of thing. Second of all, I get same deal. Well, it's a historic home, and we've got, I think it's okay, but the wood is a little bit chipping and peeling. And a lot of times I'll say, hey, would you mind having the seller just take pictures of what you're concerned about, send it to me, and I'll look at it and give you my thoughts. And again, I'm not the appraiser, but I see a lot of them. You see a lot of them. I can take a look and I can take a look and have an idea of what we're going to be dealing with and tell you yes, no, maybe so. And then again, in some cases, I've had this happen a lot where I've had to talk with sellers. Hey, this buyer can go conventional, and they love this house, so they are willing to, if they have to, flip if an issue comes up, they'd be willing to flip the switch. But it is such a better deal for them to go VA that they can't not try. Are you willing to let them try? And if an issue comes up, they'll agree to either fix it or flip it. And if that's the case, that's often worked out pretty well for us too in the past. But all those things, those aren't one size fits all. Some people aren't going to be willing to fix it or flip it. Some people aren't going to be willing to do this or that. So figure out what the buyer's, appetite for adjustment is, and then present that to the sellers, and also answer the questions. Because like I said, a lot of these that I deal with, the buyers are solid buyers. I mean, they're solid deals. And so to look at it and say, oh, I've got a 0% down VA, it's a government loan. People have a lot of stereotypes to put into place there. A lot of what I can do is kind of assuage that angst and make sure people understand just because this is a better deal for that buyer doesn't mean it's their only option, doesn't mean that they're a worse buyer. And the next question is property questions. If you're worried about it, let me help you ease those worries. Please
don't rule veterans out just because you see VA on a pre-approval letter or VA on an offer. It's really heartbreaking that so many people in this business are just making snap decisions without asking great questions, going one level deeper. Because I don't know about y'all, but I'm awfully grateful to live in this country where our fighting men and women have kept this the best place on earth for property rights. Mm-hmm. We owe it to our veterans to at least give them a fair shot and make sure that our sellers understand it's maybe not as bad as they've heard, because go to the internet, you'll see horror stories. How about talking to your local realtors and your local lenders and figuring out what your options are? Because we owe that to our vets. We really, really do. They deserve better.
Great point. Yeah. And definitely talk, because I think a lot of people don't have as much experience with VA loans. A seller's agent might have only had one 4 years ago and got burned by it. And so maybe it's just a conversation.
And they've never seen one because
so people fear what they don't understand. And that's exactly right. So have the conversation. And you're right. I mean, it's I don't want to say you have patriotic duty, but you certainly have a patriotic duty not to discount somebody.
You must salute the duck. It's a rule. See, look, Brian salutes the duck. There you go, Instagram. Salute the duck. Because we do have a responsibility to our veterans to give them a fair shot. It's not that they're always going to win, but if we are allowing discriminatory practices into our businesses, even though being a veteran is not a protected class based on HUD fair housing, you got to ask yourself if you're telling the same story about every offer that came in. And that's our job, is to tell stories and make great decisions. So let me ask you one more question. It's a little bit wonky. For the nerds in the room, because I know my nerds are the ones hanging out with me. Hey, friends. When you do a VA appraisal, can you, as a local lender, use a local appraiser, or are they asking you to go through the appraisal management companies, the AMCs, which are the plague of the earth?
Good question. So we have to order it from the VA, but the VA has a local appraiser panel that they reach out to. So when we order VA appraisal in Cabarrus County or in Mecklenburg County or wherever, it's going to be a local appraiser that's registered through the VA and gone through their whatever, VA certifications. So they're local people coming out. So you're not going to get somebody driving down from Virginia to Charlotte to appraise the property, or you shouldn't. But the idea is that they're still going to be local. Yeah. So they should be local and reasonably. There's about 3 or 4 of them around here that get a lot of our.
Well, like David Carter. David knows appraisals in Cabarrus County as well as anybody who's ever lived, and his son Hunter does too. Yeah. So can you request that from your VA contacts? You're like, hey, this is the guy who knows.
I wish, because I love both those guys. And
I know, they're great humans.
Unfortunately, we can't. Yeah, they're great dudes, and I could go on and on about both of them. Unfortunately, we're not allowed to. I wish we could pick them, but then we get into like cherry picking appraisers and cherry picking values. We're going to have to
talk about that awful legislation, the HVCC from 2009, which should never have been passed. That's a different soapbox, different day. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm going to go no comment on that. But no, unfortunately, we can't. It's potluck because otherwise, it starts leaning towards, Bob Smith he stuck me on the last one, so I'll make sure Bob Smith never gets another appraisal. and we get into the fishing for value. So that's going to be a practice that's extremely shut down and frowned upon, unfortunately. I wish, but the good news is there's only so many of them, so that it's not like you have to worry about 1 out of 50. There's probably 1 out of 5 that I see regularly rotating around. I'm sure there's more around here, but I see about 5 different names, generally speaking.
Well, we need more appraisers, period. We need younger appraisers. We need more diversity amongst appraisers. And so anybody watching this, if you're thinking about a career change, you should totally look into property valuation.
I tell you what, those guys are busier than they can stand to be right now, I bet. And those guys and gals, they're out there all the time.
Do that job? I don't want to be an appraiser.
No, I don't want to go under a crawl space. Too big.
Yeah, no, thank you. All right. So any last words for realtors who serve VA clients, for veterans who are curious about buying or selling in today's market, for sellers who are wanting to know how to evaluate a VA offer, any of our people in this audience that could be anywhere around VA, what's your biggest advice point for them, Brian?
I would say when you're dealing with the lender doing the VA, and this is not necessarily trying to sell myself here, but being a veteran myself and having a VA loan, it helps me to really understand them a lot. You know what I mean? Right. So that helps a ton. You want to deal with somebody who knows over time. You don't have to be a veteran to know a ton about VA loans. There's a lot of guys that work in this office and know a lot about VA, more than I do. But the lingo of knowing the DD-214, where to find the DD-214 if you can't get it, who to call for your LES, stuff like that. I mean, those are all things that will come up during a process that might cause difficulty for people. And so having somebody who's kind of walked the walk and understands all that talk it can be a real valuable thing. I would say to sellers and to sellers agents, when we're talking veterans, and I don't ever generalize because there's all kinds of people in all kinds of groups. You're generally talking about some of the more reliable people you're going to be dealing with. They'll be on time, they'll be respectful. They're going to, and they'll do what has to be done. And that's kind of buyer. I mean, if I was selling something, that's who I want to be selling something to. And if I was going to be buying something, that's who I want to be buying something from. So to me, a VA loan is almost like it should give you an unfair advantage because I feel like I can count on this person that's buying the house more than I can count on somebody else. And I trust them. I trust their integrity. I trust that they're going to do all the right things. And, I think that's a point of view that people should take into those transactions. I don't know if they always do. And I know that as a realtor, as a seller's agent, you have a duty to present all the things about different loans and different things to consider. But think about it from that respect. And I think a lot of times don't tell only your horror stories, because only your horror story shouldn't affect what your seller is going to do with their life and their money. So I would be careful about that.
Mic drop moment, Brian Floyd. Yeah. That's a mic drop.
Yeah. AirPod drop.
AirPod drop. So thank you for popping in at no notice, frankly, because I was so irritated that my VA clients lost, and they'll win the next one.
I know.
In this market, and we expect to lose. We just don't like to lose with an unfair representation of what the so I appreciate you bringing the conversation up a notch, and
I feel like it can be talked about for hours, so I'm glad you brought it up.
And as the realtors at the national level work towards getting the Department of Veterans Affairs to be more proactive on how these loans could be smoother in the marketplace, I'll keep you in the loop. But
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank everybody who dialed in across our networks. If you need an amazing loan professional, I got a whole list, and this is one of the best right here.
Yeah.
He probably will be a politician in Concord at some point.
We'll see about
whenever
that.
Bill's not mayor, you can run, because I think we'll all back that. You go home to that family, and thank you very much. And again, thank you for choosing to serve the country, because you did, and extra credit for that, and for getting honorably discharged. I think the only reason I know
that was close, by the way. Could have gone the other way.
Well, I think it was MASH that taught me about that, but you're too young for watching MASH, but that's what
Klinger
was for this honorable discharge.
Yeah. Well, listen, we love our veterans, even the Navy ones. So go Army, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, look at that. So LinkedIn user with no name says there have been 1.3 million VA loans in fiscal year 2020.
That's crazy. I believe that.
Wonderful. And I sure hope that we see more as people realize it's not a terrible loan product. And by the way, extra thank you for reminding us that they may qualify for other programs, but that's what's best for them. Yeah. So I appreciate that insight.
A lot of veterans out there. I mean, we've been in 2 wars for 20 years. So pretty much anybody you see on the street could be a veteran. So, there's a lot of eligibility out there. So we're probably going to be seeing more of these. So people need to, be prepared for them and know how to handle them. So I'm glad you did this. I appreciate you having me on. And like I said, we look forward to getting something done for you.
I appreciate you. We'll see you next time.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.